Hey guys, Russ Miller here. We are in our course about tripling your foot speed. So for all you metal drummers and you guys, this is really, really important to get those chops happening on the pedals. But for everybody, it's going to add a lot of dynamics into your foot playing, which is crucial and important for the feel of everything that you're doing. And then, of course, it's going to make everything a lot easier. Now, we had the triple your hand speed video where we showed the molar technique and the continuous motion technique in the hands. And we're going to now apply that to the feet. But I really recommend that you check out the triple your hand speed video because we talked about all the exercises and kind of went into depth about movements and stuff in there. And all that stuff sort of applies to the feet here. So the first things first. The reason we're doing this is a couple reasons. One, we're going to add dynamics into your feet. And secondly, we're going to give you a lot more facility on the pedals. Now, I'll tell you a couple things. First, if you can only play the bass drum by digging the beater into the head, like this, the problem that you have with that is, one, listen to the sound of the drum when I don't do that. Here's digging the beater in. Here's when if I pull the beater out. Now hopefully you can hear that, but all the bottom end comes back into the drum. Or the drum is going to sound much better. That's number one. Number two, we were talking about in the hand speed video making one note with one movement towards the drum and how bad that is. We want to make multiple notes with one movement towards the drum. The problem with the pedal is, and most of us grow up learning to dig the beater in, not only are you only making one note with one movement, now you're only making one note with two movements because you've got to put it into the drum, then you've got to take it out of the drum in preparation to play another note. So rather than just playing a note and having the beater release like this, now I'm in position to play another note again with one movement. See that? If I do it the other way, I got to lift my foot out again and remove the beater off the head to play another note. So I'm slowing down the possibility of what I can do greatly by creating two movements with one note. Not a great idea. So this continuous motion technique in the foot, something that I learned from Jim Chapin. Jim was the student of Sanford Moeller, the namesake of the Moeller technique. Jim showed me how to apply this to the foot, and my studies with Freddie Gruber also discussed continuous motion with the pedals. I have some friends of mine that are great at this, Steve Smith, Jojo Mayer. Steve Gadd uses this technique. It's sort of an old tap dancing technique. And actually, I've started taking tap dancing lessons because it helps really build facility with these continuous motion movements with the feet. And that's sort of what happens with the pedals. All of the dance is happening with that beater movement previous to it touching the head versus what happens at the head itself. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to move our right foot over to the hi-hat. And this is how I teach to do this, okay? We have our hi-hat set up over here, and I'm going to move my bass drum foot to the hi-hat. Now, most of you guys know how to splash the hi-hat, meaning that sound. When you allow it's almost like a marching band, you know, or a Piatti orchestral cymbals where you hit them together and they sort of ring. You know how to splash the hi-hat. Now, how you do that is you use your heel on the bottom of the pedal like this, right here, and you splash the heel and release the top of your foot back, which allows the cymbals to ring, okay? That is the technique on the bass drum pedal, but we're going to practice it and learn it on the hi-hat, because if you can do it on the hi-hat and keep our splashes consistent, when you move it to the pedal, you already have the technique. So here's what we're going to do. We take our full leg up in the air and we splash the hi-hat. We allow it to ring. Then we just use our ankle to play a small little note and splash the hi-hat again, keeping our heels down because we rolled back when we splashed it. So heel only, There's another splash, right, which is just a heel-only splash. That's what we call our tap note, if you watched our triple the hand speed video. So this is our down note. Our tap note is ankle only. And then we have an ankle only splash again with a lift of the leg, which now puts us in position to do the whole thing over again. So down, roll back, splash with the ankle, splash again, and roll up into position to do it all over again. And they're all going to splash. And here's why I love doing this on the hi-hat. If it doesn't all splash, you're digging your foot in, and it closes the hi-hat cymbals together, and you don't get a nice splash sound. And that's digging the beater into the head of the bass drum, which we talked about. So this is why I want you to practice on the hi-hat. It's a great tell if you're doing it correctly. It's a noisy way of doing this, and your parents probably won't dig it if you're at home that much, but it's the right way to do this. So here's our down, tap, and then tap with an up, picking up that heel. Down, splash, tap, tap with an up. Down, tap. Notice, hopefully you can hear because the mic's hard when I'm playing this stuff. I hope you can hear they're nice, consistent splashes. And what I do is I try to keep the hi-hat cymbal sort of coming to the same position. Okay, so what happens if I dig in too much, you might hear this. Where it's closing and you're not getting a nice splash. When I'm doing it correctly, down, roll back, tap, tap and lift. Okay, like I said, it's a bit noisy, but it's a great way to tell if you're doing it correctly or not. Use the hi-hat, get those splashes to be consistent and sound like that. Then you can move over to the pedal, and we're going to use the same technique here on our pedal, just the right foot for now. All right, we're going to splash, and that beater comes out of the head. See that? Now I'm going to ankle only and release the beater like I did to splash my hi-hat. But now look what's happening. The beater's back again out of the head. I didn't leave it in there because my hi-hat would have closed, remember? So splash, tap. Now I'm going to tap and roll up. Now, one of the things that Freddie would tell me to do was if you can look at the pedal, what I would do is look at the positioning of my beater. I'll put my stick on this side. Let's say it's at this angle. And I would try to make sure that that beater came back to that same position every time I did that. So down, tap, up, down, tap, up. See what I'm doing with that beater? Same relative position on each stroke. Down, tap, up, down, tap, up. Now, remember in the hand speed video, what we were talking about was one approach or one address to the instrument, but multiple notes. So the same thing, one leg address to meaning one big leg movement, down, but three notes. Down, 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 down. Okay? I'm making multiple notes with one movement. That's the principle of the whole thing. And it's also, Freddie called it continuous motion, meaning I'm keeping the beater in motion all the time in preparation to play the next note, right? So there's never a stop into the head. Now I've stopped the motion of that beater. Now I got to start it again, and then start it again, then start it again backwards, and start it again forward. There's no possible way that you can play as fast doing that as you can do when you play these multiple notes and keep that beater moving. Okay? Now I've seen guys do this where they hold their legs up in the air. A lot of metal drummers kind of do that. They hold their leg up in the air and they do this. And I'm not saying that you can't get that to go quickly, but you can never get that to have a natural dynamic in it. There's no possible way. And let me show you something. When you play a groove with no dynamic, it sounds like this. Listen to what happens to that groove when I put a dynamic in the bass drum. That dynamic hills and valleys in the bass drum adds a lot to the feel of what we're doing. And one of the things about your playing, if it doesn't feel real good like that, one of the reasons might be because of your bass drum technique and you don't have any dynamics in the bass drum element of your playing. So this will really, really help that with that big note giving you a big accent, those ankle notes being small, and so on and so forth, okay? Now, you need to do the same thing for your left foot. You're playing double bass drum, right? You want to go down, tap, up, down, tap, up, down, tap, up. And you can play the same exercise we did with the hands. If you remember what that was, it's very simple. It's 3, 6, 9, and 12. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 with each hand. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 12. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And just put the metronome on in its simple form, very slowly at first, and do that 3, 6, 9, 12 in time with the metronome. Okay? There is one more element to this that's really important. And that is that you can play duple meter figures, meaning two groups of notes, by removing the ankle tap off the foot part. You can do it with the hands too, where you're going down, up, like sometimes I do that on the ride. Down, up, down, up. I do the same thing on the foot. Down, and then I'm letting the beater come back, right? Rolling back on the foot, down, and then doing a roll forward with a lift like I did before. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now, you don't play as many groups of 3 with the feet normally as you would with your hands, and you're not necessarily playing 6 tuplets with the feet unless you're, maybe playing in a metal band, digga 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 digga. It's not something that happens a lot in jazz music, but you want to be able to have the facility to do this. What I found more is that you're going to utilize a duple version, a 2-note group, more than the 3-note group. So I highly recommend you spend time working on that exercise. And that exercise is involving just the down and the up, and it's an old drum corps exercise that I used to do where I would put on 1/8 notes on the metronome. I'll give you this, I'll show you this very simple. Let me bring the tempo really, really slow, down to maybe 60, and I'll put 1/8 notes on. Okay, so we're going to do this. It's accent each downbeat, then accent upbeat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So what happens is you end up doing 2 ankle notes together and 2 full notes together as the bars turn around. And this is a great exercise for this. 3, 3, 4, down. Down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down, ankle, ankle, down, 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 down. That's the exercise. Write it down today, maybe start at 65, 70 like I am, and then work on it each day on each foot. Make sure you do it on each foot, back and forth, and you'll get that speed up. And like I said, in triple your hand speed, in 90 days, you'll kill it. Started at 60 today, 61, 62, 63. 90 days, you're at 150. You'll be blazing, okay? So I'll give you an example of how to use this real quick, and I think you can really utilize it. You watch my foot technique in playing something like this. 2, 3. All right? If you're playing groups of 2, one other trick is to accent the second part of each group. And by doing that, you just reverse the technique. And you can do that by going up first and then down. Up first and then down. So up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Same thing with the hand. Sometimes we would do that with 2s. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up. What happens with this is that when you start going quicker, by accenting that second note, you give it value, and you end up with that sort of machine gunning doubles between the hands and the foot. Let me give you an example of that. Up, down. Okay, so I don't know how much you're going to do that, but it's a great way to be able to utilize groups of 2 between the hands and the foot with a single pedal, and you can see how much this technique works into it. And I utilize this in a lot of different ways, between the hands and the feet, double pedal, all those things. But this is sort of heading you in that direction. I hope that it makes sense, and that it gives you some inspiration to get your feet working in a dynamic way, and get it working in a way that's not so physically difficult. You know, digging that beater in on every note, it's physically tiring, and you know, it doesn't really sound that good. So, you know, you can always dig it in for stylistic stuff. I do it myself, but you don't want to only be able to do that, okay? So spend the time, be organized, work on it, triple that foot speed, get that dynamic in there. Make sure to check out the hand one as well. And we have some great other courses we're filming here at Drumeo that I'm doing. Check out the open-ended facility developed for drum set. We have a whole series on that, and the recording stuff as well. We'll see you guys in those next courses. Thanks.